Hello, I'm Nurse Dad, aka RN Glenn, former Navy Hospital Corpsman and current ER nurse, and welcome to my podcast. We have full episodes on Spotify and YouTube. You can reach those platforms via my website, www.mynursedad.com. And I have the honor and privilege of speaking to Daniel Doc Jacobs. Welcome to the podcast, brother.
Well, thanks for having me, man. I know it's been a little bit in the works, but thanks.
Yeah. Well, what I like about this medium is I only spoke to you briefly in 2010 or 2011. This was at the School of Infantry, my first command. I was still very impressionable, especially concerning Greenside Corpsman. That's corpsman who served with the Marines. I think I had just finished field medical training. I was back at SOI, and there you are. I think you were visiting one of the higher ups, one of the, like a HM2 or an HM1.
I think it was a couple of the guys were getting promoted to HM3, and so I was up there visiting as well while I was in town.
What's unique about your situation is you deployed to Iraq and you were in a vehicle and you were hit with an IED. And we'll go into your injuries, but among it was you lost your right leg?
Left leg initially, and then right
Left
leg.
leg.
Yeah.
Left leg initially.
Yeah.
I'm going to go over this bio of yours. This is not going to do justice to you, but it's just the skinny version. So we have Doc Jacobs. You're currently 39. You're medically retired as a Navy corpsman. You served 8 years and 2 months. You were on that deployment sent with 3rd Battalion, 7th Marine Regiment to Ramadi in Iraq, September 2005. You were in a gun truck when you were struck by an IED. Before that, you had over 225 combat patrols. You had 2 full years of physical, mental, and spiritual recovery. When I met you, I think you were still in the throes of getting surgeries then, right?
Yeah, I was at War Battalion, and I was like staff/patient there. So, yeah.
You had partial amputations from the fingers? Right.
Yeah.
And then 16 years later, you lost your right leg. I guess they tried to keep it and just wasn't happening for you.
Yeah, I had over 30 surgeries on it.
Wow.
And then I was finally down to ankle fusion or amputations. I just decided to just chop and go. So
What I love about your story is you embody the spirit so well. I mean, you have done 26 world marathons. Again, I'm reading for people who might not see this. 26 world marathons. You're planning on becoming one of the few amputees to run a half marathon on all 7 continents. Now, I'm not going to do justice to all the foundations you're a part of, but you founded the Doc Jacobs Foundation. And we'll have links in the description of this video where you fund sports scholarships for kids of military and veteran families. You were appointed ambassador with the Gary Sinise Foundation, executive director of Amputee and Prosthetics for Global Diabetes Alliance. I mean, that's just a couple of things that you've done. You're part of you were featured in a documentary by Anthony Edwards called Searching for Home, Coming Back from War. You've done other things concerning media. I mean, I could just go on and on. You got a master's degree in forensic science, specializing in investigations. A recipient of a Bronze Star with Valor, Purple Heart, and that is not the end of those accolades. Another one, San Diego has recognized you by making November 17th Doc Jacobs Day. I have to cut it short so I can get to the questions and talk to you. The whole podcast would be your bio.
It's funny because someone once told me, like, hey, just keep a short bio, like kind of like a running bio. And honestly, it's tough to.
I know. Well, when you have accolades like that, it's good. You're representing, when you read your bio, it's not just a description of past events. It shows your character and a spirit to live up to for all of us.
Yeah, it really is kind of like a running bio, almost like a live journal, really.
Yeah. You're also a father.
Yeah, 2 kids. They'll be 12 and 8 coming in August. And next week we're going on a Disney cruise. So,
Excellent.
Yeah, spending summer vacation
the right way. Yeah, I have my kids, and it's just so hot right here in New York. It was 104 yesterday. All I can do is just take them to the pool. I can't really do much outside with them.
Yeah, that's brutal, man. Yeah.
So I wanted to ask you to describe that patrol. This was in 2005. What was the quote unquote gunship? What vehicle was that?
Like I started out the patrol. So our mission as an India company, 3rd Battalion, 7th Marines, we were training the Iraqi Army at the time. So our missions were, we basically had a 9-day work week. So we had 3 days combat patrols doing counterinsurgency. And then we had 3 days of, or like platoon ops, and then 3 days of training Iraqi Army, and then 3 days of QRF out in the city. So we were on our morning patrol with our first squad taking the Iraqi Army out. So I was out there on patrol. I was driving the medevac Humvee, and that's where it started. And then the vehicle that I was hit in wasn't the one that I started in.
No.
But I mean, it's one of those like chaos of war. One of the high backs got hit. So basically high backs like troop transport, but just for like fire team squad size. For those that don't know. And so I was driving the high back designated for medical. So when that other high back got hit, that was in our convoy. The two people driving it, the driver, a driver, they were knocked unconscious for about a minute, but no other significant injuries. They needed to maintain squad integrity. So I gave up my vehicle that I was driving. And then I just hopped in what was going to be the second to the last gun truck. But then while we were waiting for the Army record to come out that day for the Humvee that got hit, because it completely immobilized it, it blew the engine block. Like this IED was so powerful, blew the engine block on top of the second story, like rooftop. Like, so 2 stories up on top of that rooftop. So yeah, that was pretty crazy. That vehicle was disabled, but while we kind of circled around and set up overwatch and everything, we got in a firefight. Black sedan pulled up at the T in the road, and masked insurgents popped up and started shooting at us. What was the rear gun truck then? I think it was the mounting pin for the 240 malfunction. So then that rendered that vehicle useless as a rear gun truck. So then the vehicle that I hopped in, which was second to rear, became the rear gun truck. And then when the Army record came out and, said, hey, we got this, we headed back to base. And then that's when I got hit.
And just for those watching who might not know, 240 is automatic rifle.
Yeah.
And if that wasn't mounted correctly, obviously that can't be your rear vehicle. You need some other gun. When you were hit, was it one of those where you woke up, or were you awake after you were hit?
I was awake and alert through it all. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Which, I mean, just was crazy, Yeah.
Were you instructing people? Were you out of it, or was it?
My immediate thought was, holy shit, we were getting hit by an IED. And then my second thought was, holy shit, I'm alive thinking this right now. And so, but everything went black from the sit and everything. And I didn't know it at the time, but the Oakleys that I was wearing, the shrapnel went into the Oakleys and blurred them. And so when we landed,
But they didn't penetrate the Oakleys, right? Wow. Thank God you had those on, huh?
And I mean, I have shrapnel that went into my nose, like through the sinuses. I have shrapnel like out here on the side of my nose, and, but yeah, it the frat from.
Yeah. And I know that Oakleys, when I first got in, I'm like, everyone's buying Oakleys. What's going on? And I know Oakleys, they really make them well. And I know one person told me, just even from an explosion, you might wear regular sunglasses, they might melt into your eyes.
Yeah.
Oakleys are just made to endure. It sounds like an ad for Oakleys, but yeah, I definitely recommend proper investment in both Ear Pro and Eye Pro when you're in.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And then we landed on the side, and my immediate thought was like, I got to get to work. And so I felt my legs for any significant like life-threatening bleeding, because that's what we're trained to do, right? Because if Doc's dead, like what are we gonna do for Marines? And so. Yeah, so I felt for.
Was there another corpsman around who was aiding you, or?
There was, but he didn't aid me. And so what I did was I felt for any life-threatening bleeding. felt my legs were bleeding. And so put tourniquets on right away. And then I radioed in my position. And then,
Right, because both your legs were significantly
yeah,
wounded. Obviously, since 16 years later, you did lose the other leg. So, yeah, that's right. I keep focusing on the one, but yeah,
Yeah.
you had the double leg injuries.
yeah.
This was 2005 before the surge. Were you guys kind of widely dispersed? There just wasn't enough people. How was that?
Well, at the time, I mean, we were taking casualties pretty hardcore. I think our company alone, we had 5K, and
Oh man.
Wow.
Wow.
And so I think we took probably around 20K, and then overall our battalion, and then on top of that, all the wounded, walking wounded, because
Yeah.
at that time, I mean, that wasn't the first IED I've been hit by. I mean, shit, that was the second IED we
Oh really?
just our patrol got hit by that day alone.
Right.
And, so it's like,
So many facets. You're in a firefight, the IED, taking on all those casualties, the rigor of it. When I was reading your bio, were you an IA? Were you kind of thrown to this unit? You didn't do the pre-deployment training?
yeah,
I had that, but obviously it wasn't a combat deployment where it was kind of like, all right, we got to leave in 3 days. You're gonna be part of a battalion landing team. You're gonna have to learn how to fast rope quick and all this kind of stuff. They kind of just throw corpsmen into the mix. Sounds like that's what they did with you.
yeah, I was an IA, literally got orders, and they were just like, hey, we don't know what to do with you. The guys are on pre-deployment right now. So, and at the time, what had happened with me and some of the other guys was some of the guys that I went through field med and graduated with, or, whatnot, or were IAs as well. That went to 3-1, and then they went to Haditha. We were all just like, dropped in while everyone was on pre-deployment leave. So they were like, hey, well, you can take extra leave or you can go do combat trauma. So a lot of us, and back then it was only volunteer. So we volunteered to go to CTM.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did that before deployment, but there wasn't a choice involved. Well, good on you. I mean, 2005, it was still in the early days. I remember speaking to, the older guys, how up until 9/11, they were still teaching Vietnam tactics for medical care.
Yeah.
So we were kind of thrown into modernizing. And I would imagine 2005, you're still figuring it out a little bit.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, we still had the granulated quick clot, which we were just
Yeah.
barely getting then. We didn't have any of the blood volume expanders. We weren't taught how to do the blood transfusions in the field. We had none of that, dude. It was just basically like golden hour, get them up and out.
Yeah, I remember some people telling me like, have saran wrap on you for some of your chest wounds, or cut the MREs, and you just don't have enough. You never have enough.
Yeah, the MREs with the old duct tape and the saran wrap for burns, and it's like,
That's the one thing with School of Infantry. Like, even if you're not deployed to a combat zone, everyone who's instructing was. So the tempo is, this is how it is. This is how you have to learn. This is what you got to show your Marine. There's corpsman care. There's corpsman aid, buddy aid, and self aid. They need to know the 3 tiers, and you're just getting all this intense and profound knowledge from the combat vets across the board.
Oh yeah, and I don't want to say their names on here, but some of the other seniors, because I ran MCT for a while, and some of the other trainers,
which is, for those watching, is military combat training.
Yeah.
For Marines who are not going to go into infantry.
Yeah.
They graduate boot camp, they go to MCT, they learn, every Marine a rifleman, and they perfect their skills, and then they might go off to be, drivers or mechanics and whatnot. Yeah.
Yes.
So you ran that, you said you were in that?
Yeah. So I ran that for a little while, and then the others that ran like ITB, Infantry Training Battalion, AIT, Advanced Infantry Training.
For those who are going to become actual infantrymen.
Yeah. And so the new guys coming through, new guys corpsmen, I remember some of my guys, I would get calls from gunnies over, and they're like, hey, I got some Marines that are going to go IA. They just need extra, hiking out in the field or rucking, whatever.
Okay, that's cool.
And so we need corpsman coverage. And I'm like, okay, well, hey, these corpsmen are going IA as well. So, so I would just take my time on the weekends and just set it up, and I would go oversee and just make sure that my little boot nuggets were getting their training too. So yeah.
Yeah, I was a part of ITB in field section and AIT, Advanced Infantry Training, those who are coming back from the fleet for more advanced training, which is a good gig because I know MCT, they needed to get those Marines to their schools as fast as possible. So you might be like 15 days in the field, weekends,
Oh
whereas
yeah.
ITB is called something else now, I can't remember, but you had your weekends off. So it was kind of a good gig to be at Camp Pendleton, 40 minutes outside of San Diego, and know that your Saturday and Sunday are yours. That was a good gig. I don't think I appreciated it at the time because it is a lot of work in field section, and some corpsmen, it doesn't work out for them. I actually was told later that my name came up for an Afghanistan deployment, but because I was always on time and was really good with, at SOI, they gave it to somebody else who wasn't working out at SOI or something was manipulated. I was actually very upset about that. And when I got to Italy because that month there were no slots open for Marines in 2012, which is quite unique because I had put in for it, because first off, you can't tell somebody when it's time to choose another command. Yeah, I'll go to Europe. Like, yeah, you'll go to Europe. All right. I actually asked to go to multiple Marine units and they were like, honestly, this month we have nothing.
Wow.
What have you always wanted to do? And I went to Europe, but the first day in Europe, I told my chief, I said, look, this is a dream come true. But if a deployment comes up with Marines, I want to go. Because what was hard about School of Infantry is you do so much and you get so emotionally attached, especially to these combat vets that are coming back, Marines and corpsmen. You want your FMF pin. You want to wear it on your chest. You want to be able to do the most amount of good that you can. Long story short, about 7 months or 8 months, an Afghanistan deployment did come up. But unfortunately, after my pre-deployment leave, it became a MU, a Marine Expeditionary Unit. But not that I'm knocking it. It was kind of incredible in its own right. But I tried. That's what I tell people. I tried.
Yeah.
I tried to. It wasn't like a macho thing. It was. I just wanted to be the most use, and I'm still like that as an ER nurse. I just want to, this areas people don't want to go. It's like I was interviewing a buddy of mine. He deployed 4 times, twice with the Marines, and he got to a point where it was like, let it be me. These bad things are going to happen. I'd rather it happen to me. I'm not gonna say like he went through it, I didn't, but you went through it, I didn't. But I've always had that kind of mentality. I'm like, there's a fire over there. People are running away from it. Let me see if someone needs help.
Yeah. And it's one of those. I don't know, man. Because I tried to redeploy like multiple times, and well, like what you were saying about you're on time, you're presentable, everything's like good to go, right? Like you're on time, you do your work, accolades, this and that, and then you get punished for it. And then someone who is not on time, is a little struggling with their PRT, PFT, whatever.
Which is what happened, actually.
Yeah.
It's actually what happened. Somebody that, quote unquote, a shitbag behind the scenes
and
was the one who got selected and then comes back like, and I'm like,
bro, you were a dirtbag before, and, honestly, like I waited to have kids until I got out of the military. But I knew if I had kids while I was in, and I was like, well, I don't know if I could kids, they would have freaking deployed me. Like it's always, and I saw that at SOI. People like, I don't want to go on deployment. Like kids, I get a wife, like struggling at home, and then Big Navy's like, nope, you're going. Too bad, too sad. We didn't issue a family in your sea bag, and it's like.
That's the one thing, if I can go back in time, I'd have a little bit more consideration for. I got to hand it to the Marines and corpsmen who had families and kids, or didn't even see their kids being born. Because now that I have 2 kids, it's like, even 7 months, it's a lot of time. It's a lot of time to miss. Forget about Army deployments. Like you come back in a year, then you go back out for another 6, 7, 8 months. It's kind of nuts.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, I did what I could on deployment. There was a morale issue. And I remember we were in Djibouti, Africa. We were training. There was talk that we were going to go to South Sudan because there was, civil war was happening in 2013. And then we were training to possibly go to Yemen with the SEAL team. So a lot of training involved, a lot of almost, a lot of lining up on the tarmac or, go back, we're not going. But it's, there was a morale problem. And so I fought tooth and nail to get the Marines like a day off, and we went to the local Red Cross, and I got them all CPR certified. And
nice.
the looks on some of the dads' faces when they got their certificate or they're practicing, life-saving skills on the infant doll, it boosted morale. It just like, we just needed a day to do a couple of things. Here's some skills you can go back home with. You can hold your baby and know that if they start choking, you know what to do. It made a big difference. It doesn't seem like a lot, but. And then, because I got in good at the Red Cross, it's like, here's some toothpaste, here's some new stuff, here's some this, here's snacks. It's like, you do what you can.
Oh, yeah.
But
that's great, man.
I wanted to ask you, this is a question I really wanted to ask you. I have to set it up first, considering what happened to you. And I do want to move beyond it. I just wanted to, it's just profound, your level of positivity. So I'm just trying to deconstruct that a little bit for people, because it's tough. Life is tough for all of us, but your level of positivity and momentum is inspiring. Now, considering what happened to you on the other side of the aisle, say a civilian man wakes up, he gets his coffee at 7-Eleven, gets back in his car, say he gets into a head-on collision and sustains similar injuries to you. Now, he's in a situation where like he may lose his job, he may lose people that he's close to and like in his community, work community. He's probably gonna go through the usual emotional highs and certainly lows and depressive thoughts and things like that. Now, when you went on deployment, you're aware that you may not make it back. You might come home in a box. So this horrible thing happens to you. Would you say that because you realized that you were alive, because you had the military system, which was, I would imagine, a very supportive system around you, and you still had a job because you're in the military, did that help keep you on a positive path despite all that? Or did you go through the typical, depression and lows that everyone else would have, most other people would have after sustaining injuries like you had?
Yeah, I mean, as much as it prepared me, because I was 6.5 months in on a 7-month tour, and so
yeah, I saw that.
A lot of my friends, and I say friends, but also a lot of my Marines that I barely knew, that I just treated, they were like different company or whatever. A lot of those guys that got hit before me, some of them were already in prosthetics before I got hit. And so
oh wow,
I was actually comforting one of the Marines in the back of the medevac kayak after I got hit, and I was mentally prepping him for
right.
And I told him, and he emotional, he was trying to comfort me, but he was like crying. And he's like, "You're gonna be okay, doc." And I was like, "I know I'm gonna be okay." And I said, "But don't be surprised if the next time you see me, I'm missing one or both of my legs." Like, I'm mentally preparing him.
So you had a realistic mindset of what you had gone through.
But having that still didn't take away the depression, the anxiety, all of that stuff.
Because
yeah,
part of your identity is wrapped in what you were before the accident, and now you have to cope with who am I kind of question, right?
Oh yeah, yeah. And then the why me. And so I was talking about this to someone the other day. I said I went from a year of just straight training for war, because I joined August of 2004, and then I deployed late August, early September of 2005. And so then 6.5 months of combat, and then 3 months inpatient in the hospital. So that's almost 2 years of just go, and, building this identity. And then with a click of a button, everything changes, and the whole trajectory of my life just went this way. And
especially in the military, because your identity and your job are very much in sync, especially as a corpsman. It's like we wear it on our heart. It's who we are.
Oh yeah. And then having to go from preparing for, okay, well, the military telling me I only have 18 months to get better. I'm getting out.
Oh, they said that, huh?
Oh yeah, you only get
They give you a timeline.
three 6 months med boards, and then you're
That's an interesting concept to think about. That, and it shows you the level of discipline. So here you are with less limbs than you started, and the military, as supportive it is like, well, there is a job to do, and,
Yeah.
and if you can't do that job, Godspeed.
yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, the U.S. military is a business, and and I had to look at it that way because I thought I was being picked on. I thought I was, but really, at the end of the day, I was like, okay, it's a business. There are numbers here. And so I thought, okay, well, maybe if I just get back to the schoolhouse at 1st Marine Division and I can teach. And
Right.
so then when I get over there, this was 2011, and I finally make it back to 1st Marine Division, and I get over there and I'm being told, no, you're not going to come teach because you need another deployment, but we're not going to deploy you. And so I was like,
Yeah, that's the big Navy and big Marine Corps, the blue and green weenie.
oh yeah. Yeah. So I just said, and I had one chief told me one time, he said, basically you're a poster child. You're basically like here just as like a pretty boy, and you were to have your dress blues and dress whites inspection ready in your locker. So if a dignitary comes through, you're going to go have lunch with them and represent the command in Big Navy. And
yeah, that's a cruel statement to make.
And I said, that's not for me, and I'm out. And so, yeah. Yeah. So I decided at the end of my 8 years that I was going to accept a medical retirement and be done. So
I noticed, like, look, there's like, you have these, there's nothing that Marines and sailors wouldn't do for each other in many instances. But I noticed when I was on deployment, I had a buddy, a Marine. He was an Afghan vet. He came back. He had some issues. He wound up getting busted down from corporal to lance corporal. And I remember when I attached the butter bar, the lieutenant warned me about him, and he's like, maybe you should sit down with him and see if you can get him under control. And I sat down with him, and I'm like, this guy's awesome.
yeah.
In fact, he reminds me of me, and he totally takes orders and does everything. But yeah, I guess he might be a little bit like under his breath about certain things. And but I did notice like sometimes there is a lack of support. Like obviously he came back from Afghanistan. He had a rough tour, and there was a lack of maybe mental health services. Unfortunately, on the deployment that we had went on in Africa, we were doing fast roping drills. He came down, and apparently like a staff sergeant said something to him because of this like reputation that he was fighting, as for whatever reasons, and it set him off, and he has PTSD, and he had an attack, and he was in the medical tent. I tried to separate him, and I told the physician, I'm like, he needs to go home. He just can't. There's just an element out there that's not supportive to him, and he should probably go back to Camp Pendleton. And it happened, and then tragically he went back to Camp Pendleton. He wound up committing suicide. But I noticed, like, even when he was in the tent, like one of the sergeants would say something to him, like, he's I'm gonna use the word broke dick, and it was almost like in garrison there's a different treatment, but in a potential combat situation, or you may go to combat, like you're in a deployment setting, the whole like guppies eat their own. There is a little bit of that. There's a little bit of like, we're out here and you're not, or you can't cut it, even if it's like horrible, like very legit reasons. There's like a thread of that, guppies eating their own. Like I have no room in my world for you, even though you do know better. You're a staff sergeant. You've been around.
Oh yeah.
You do know what he's going through, but just, it's like intolerable, especially for like the younger guys seeing this. I guess maybe that's it. Because as corpsmen, we're kind of taught to sort of separate certain people from the group, like if they have like a mental health issue, like, or if there's casualties, there's a place for that. We don't
Yeah.
try to protect the Marines from seeing that. I'm not sure if there's a little bit of that going on, but it sounds like from some of the stuff you've mentioned that there was a little bit of that going on with you.
Oh yeah. I mean, it was pretty bad, man. I mean, everything was highly scrutinized. Even my electronic medical and service record was constantly being changed and messed with. I can't tell you how
Oh,
many
really?
times I went down to see my ortho surgeon, who was my ortho trauma surgeon, who had seen me from May of 2006 in Balboa, and had treated all of my injuries, signed off saying I was worldwide assignable. And then I would turn it in to Big Navy, go to the yeoman, turn it in. They'd uploaded my record, and then I'd be like, okay, maybe in a couple months, put on a deployment roster. And then
Yeah.
and then I would look after the deployment roster came out and like, oh, so and so, so and so, so and so, you're going to Afghanistan with this unit. And it's like, well, what about me? And then it turned out
Right.
that but it was like always this constant. I would go on my electronic service record, and then I would see that it would say not deployable, and so it was like this constant game that I was playing with the Navy. And so I don't know, I mean, I can't blame them, because it's their system, but
I want to ask you about your resolve with it, but first, what made you want to redeploy as an amputee?
I just wanted to do my job.
Yeah.
To me, that's what it was all
It's pretty
about.
simple, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I told the Navy, yeah, anyone that would like listen in the chain of command, I'm like, hey, look, I know I'm not going back to the front lines. I know, like, it's not feasible, but why can't I be an ALPO or an LPO over at a deployable
Yeah.
unit, or even just be like, a third or second class over there, just as like help, talking to the guys coming back off of patrol. Why not?
Yeah. For those watching, it's like, a corpsman, there might be one corpsman for 150 Marines or 100 Marines, like human. And one of the things that keeps you going, that really helps your morale out, is good leadership. A really solid chief, a good HM2, HM1. These are first and second class petty officers, first and second class petty officers that are in charge. They're the ones that, where you're going to go, what resources are available for you. Like these make the differences. And, you have shock trauma platoons, and you have things in the rear that are very much involved in saving lives, transport. Certainly there was something for you there, but it seemed like there was politics involved.
Oh yeah. I mean, I did this like towards the end, went to PMR class, but got certified PMR, but I couldn't, they wouldn't send me to any other schools either. They wouldn't send me to
Yeah.
Scientific. They wouldn't lab, like nothing. Every C school that I applied to got shot down. Every commissioning program, PA, everything. And so,
Right, commissioning program. You thought maybe you can go in that route, which
yeah,
is certainly not lacking in leaders and could use
yeah.
all the experience it can afford.
They kept saying no, no, no. But then, I mean, when it comes time for promotion as corpsman, if you don't have a recent
Yeah.
deployment, you're
It's already tough for corpsmen. One of the reasons why I don't think I made H. Well, that deployment in Italy, Italy was a good command to stay and study at,
yeah.
to make HM2, second class petty officer, E5 for those watching. But it was more important for me to deploy, acquire an FMF badge, which is, shows that like, hey, you're locked down when it comes to Greenside, when it comes to taking care of Marines. That was more important to me.
Oh, yeah.
But a lot of corpsmen in the field, they don't have access to the computers, and you're doing a lot of work. And so a lot of times Greenside corpsmen tend to not promote as quickly. I remember at Camp Pendleton at the hospital, whenever I went there for whatever administration tasks that needed to be done, there was this HM3 who was just a warrior, multiple deployments, the go-to guy, teaching tactical combat casualty care. and was really having, he was kind of at the end, like, you need to make HM2 or you're going to be out of the Navy. And it's just like, the Navy needs guys like this. Like he needs to make that rank
Yeah.
and stay in. But the reason he was like kind of behind was because he's busy going to war.
Yeah. Yeah.
It stinks.
Oh yeah. Well, and you see like that third class that you're competing with at the hospital for promotion for second class. And
2 NAMs for organizing like a Halloween party
Yeah.
and, the Christmas bake-off sale. And here you are,
Yeah.
you came back from Afghanistan or Iraq and it's like
yeah.
you have a combat action ribbon, but you don't have a NAM for the bake sale. You should have done that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Because you didn't help with the Corpsman ball or the Navy ball, so.
I saw a blue side sailor. She had 5 NAMs. I'm like,
Yeah.
that's nuts.
I won. I won.
Yeah.
No comms. Most of my awards are all combat. Crazy.
Yeah. Hey, that Bronze Star with Valor.
Yeah.
I mean, look, it's not about any of that. You're alive. You're
Okay.
you run marathons. You have
I'm-
kids. I know you're not, that stuff doesn't matter to you. I could tell right off the bat.
Just sits on the
Some
wall.
people wear like a Purple Heart and like they love to like let everyone know. You're not like that. I know you.
You see that's
But-
what it is here.
Yeah, the green side.
Now,
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh yeah.
And then the FMF, and then my marathon. These are all just running. So, yeah.
That's amazing.
yeah.
That's amazing.
So
How much do you weigh? Like how is it running with the prosthetics?
right now, so last October I did my first half as a double amputee. That one kind of hurt. I didn't train,
Oh, yeah, right.
but I didn't have time. I was going through divorce, so it hurt. I'm training more now, and I'm trying different types of prosthetics and stuff. And so, the ones that I just recently tried, they're overall 1.6 pounds heavier than the ones that I normally wear. So it's like those aren't feasible, for running in 13.1 miles. And so, so, and I mean, here, let me pop off my leg for you. I just have like a basic, just heel toe. That's all I do. I don't have.
Is that part of what you're going in? You said you're going in today for something. Is it part of that?
Yeah,
Like
these
for a better
ones-
prosthetic or
These ones are the older ones, so I'm replacing their warranty swaps essentially. So, yeah.
and I just wanted to go back. I'm sorry, I'm going to cut you off. I just know that there's a lack of time.
Oh, no.
I'm sure you have a lot of buddies, a lot of positivity that comes from your experience. Is that how you resolve some of the less positive experiences that you've had, like with some of the bureaucratic ones? Like at the end of the day, you have the green side wall and the FMF pin, loud and proud, and the photographs. What's your attitude about it? What's your resolve about what you've gone from highs and lows? And what's the overall, your overall statement about it? Like, how do you feel about your service and the people you were with and everything?
I mean, overall, I would do it a million times over, even knowing the outcome, even knowing the pain and agony that I would go through, but knowing that I did everything that I could for those that didn't make it. But also having my Marines know that I've done that as well. And also the bonds that I've built over the past almost 2 decades with not just corpsmen, but with Marines and other sailors and soldiers, airmen, coasties. I haven't met any Space Force, but
It's funny when you're in, you're very, tribal. Yeah. Even for corpsmen, you're like with the Marines and like blue side is kind of suspect. And then you become a veteran. You're like, hey, I don't care what you did. You don't care what branch or department, like, come on, it's a party. We're all veterans,
Oh yeah. Yeah. And I'm kind of getting into that, like, I don't want to say like crusty old vet, but like I'm now like writing legislation to like change stuff in the VA, and like so much that I've had DAV and Wounded Ward Project either ghost me or tell me like, hey, we're not going to back this because this is going to put a target on your back and our backs. And I'm like, but like you said, overall, it goes from that tribal mentality to like the overall, like, hey, veterans need taken care of and their loved ones.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Especially from the story you told me, it seems as though, active duty people who are in recovery need it as well.
Oh yeah.
It's not just once you're out. It seems like even within, you may need outside help, people who've been through it to come in and say, "Hey, I've been here. You're not alone in this."
Yeah. Well, and it's wonderful because I think the military has gotten better because of stories recently. People that get injured in like motorcycle accidents, like, like a Humvee rollover on Pendleton, a fast rope incident, whatever, and
Yeah. Well, I tell people die in training every year. When I was at School of Infantry, an instructor died in the I think with recon in the water tanks, something like that. Someone drowned. I think there was a vehicle. I can't remember what it was, but it sank. What's it called? Those. Yeah, Amtrak. It sank. All 12, I think, drowned. Helicopter crash. I think I think while I was there, a vehicle fell off a mountain.
Oh yeah.
Coming down. I mean, it happens. I was talking about the MEU when I was in Djibouti, and this was somebody at Camp Pendleton. He was on the 11th MEU in the same training live fire exercise, and unfortunately, somebody put the same light on him that the dummies had.
Oh wow.
And he got shot and killed in Djibouti, Africa. So we train like we fight. That's what they say, and it's true. And
yeah,
I mean, I'm not comparing it to your experience, but it's a lot. It's a lot of stressors that you have to get used to, and I don't know. I kind of like learned to eat them.
Oh,
like they were.
Yeah.
What stress are you giving me? Let me consume this.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I miss it now. I actually miss it.
Oh.
I think a lot, and I see a lot of young men, and I'm like, it's like parenting. Like you can give your kids everything, and they're probably going to resent you for it. But if you deprive them enough, the deprivation, especially young men, they want to overcome from deprivation. That's what builds the bonds.
Oh yeah,
that's something the Marines taught me when I went into the field. Because especially me, I was from New York City. I'm like, I didn't like camping, and then one day I'm in Pendleton sleeping outside, and there's coyotes in the distance, and you learn to like, you're cold, get into the sun. You're hot, go into the shade. Like you're with the elements, and I loved it. It gave me such peace. And I'm like, this is what we need. It's necessarily always a medication or even a vacation of luxury. It's like, get outside, man. Unplug.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Well, and that's what I love now, man. Because like I've learned to cope with, and I've done my fair share of therapy and stuff. Don't get me wrong, but like for me, what I do is I work out. I run half marathons. I'm on Team USA's Paralympic bobsledding team. I've climbed Kilimanjaro.
Yeah, I wanted to mention that. Yeah, I didn't do you justice.
Well, no,
you're justice. You were,
and
you tried out for Major League Baseball. I mean, you've done a lot of stuff.
Well, and even now, like, so after I didn't get a call from a team, kind of got snubbed, and I won't say what team that is, but literally the next day I was on a plane to Tarawa. And for those that don't know, the Battle of Tarawa was a 3-day battle.
Naval.
Yeah. Naval.
Air. Yeah, all in the air. Yeah. The whole thing. Right?
Naval and Marine Corps, yes. Because the Navy bombarded the island from the sea and air, and the Marines went in, and this was like when they messed up and it was low tide. And so the Amtraks got stuck, and then the Marines had to like wade through low tide under heavy machine gun fire. And we lost a lot of guys, but so I'm like literally didn't get a call, didn't do the tryout. So then I just said, yeah, well, screw it, so I flew to Tarawa and started contracting. And so, yeah, just like you said, being outside, doing something positive, doing something great. It really does change your mindset.
I remember on the ship, they did the same route for a little while that First Marine Division took to Guadalcanal, in the South Pacific.
Oh, wow.
And they opened up the doors, and I'm like, here I am, attached to First Marine Division. It says Guadalcanal, on the one. Now looking at the water before me, that was, and it felt like there was still blood in the water. It was very almost religious, certainly pious experience to look at that water. And it was a clear day, and the water was kind of glassy, and it was just incredible. Like going into Pearl Harbor wearing the cloth of your country, like on a ship. Like there's little moments like that. You just, here we are docking next to the Arizona Memorial, and it's just little things like that that happen. Like they're just incredible.
Yeah, I'll tell you a quick story too. It's something very similar. I was leaving Tarawa. I was on a flight on Fiji Airways from Tarawa down to Fiji, and then I was going Fiji to LA. And this guy sitting next to me, he starts a conversation with me, and he's like, "Hey man, are you religious by chance?" And I was like, "A conversation on a 4-hour flight."
Yeah.
And I was like, "Yeah, man, I am," and he's like, "I'm Muslim, but he's I don't know what your religion is." Well, I'm Christian, and we had like a very civil conversation, right? Like, didn't matter. There was no barriers there. And he was like, "I really feel," he said, "I don't know what it is about that island." He's like, "I was on Batio, on Tarawa," and he's like, "Muslim people, like, we don't believe that there's like lingering spirits, like you go up to Allah and whatever, right?"
Right.
And he was like, "I feel like there's so many spirits on that island still." And I was like,
Yeah.
"Probably are, dude." Like, I could feel them, and
Yeah.
like really weird, like you said. And here we are, like, leaving this like monumental battle in Marine Corps history, and I'm there like recovering the bodies from that, the fallen heroes. And this guy knows nothing of the battle. He was just over there, like his wife was
it is incredible.
yeah, his wife was like an electrician, and they were like redoing some stuff on the island, and he was just there with her and was like, "I feel like there's uneasy spirits there." And I was like, all right. But like you said,
I would love to go to Iwo Jima one day. Like, I would just love to go there.
Oh, Iwo Jima,
walk on that beach.
Yeah, Palau or Peleliu, from the Battle of Peleliu, Guadalcanal.
Yeah, I would just love to do that. Even taking a vacation to Vietnam if I could, just to go to some of the, they must have sites there.
Oh, I'm sure, but
I'm particularly sensitive with the Vietnam vets, because like if anybody got screwed over more, it was the Vietnam era.
Oh, and honestly, I always give them a lot of credit, because they're the ones that have led to our welcoming homes. And
yeah, they have. They really have streamlined that.
Yeah. And, so I'm very sensitive to the Vietnam vets as well. And thank you for bringing that up, man. Like, that's very key.
One of the greatest things I did in the Navy was right off the bat. I did a volunteer op in downtown San Diego trying to get homeless veterans, Vietnam vets, registered.
Oh, wow.
And I remember one veteran, he was, his whole life, he was homeless, and it turned out he was 100%, he can get 100% disability.
Oh, wow.
He just, homeless for like the last 30, 40 years. It was, and I remember one guy, he went through it, and just telling me that, and then starts crying, because it was, he was at the airport coming back thinking, all proud of himself, and nobody wanted to sit next to him in the airport. It was just like, you try thinking like that, like just mind boggling.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to sit next to you in your uniform.
Yeah.
When you were going through what you were going through with your injury initially, what was your anchor? Was it like your mom, or who was like your emotional anchor?
Honestly, it was my Marines. I mean, I had family back home, like my dad and my grandma were there like right away as soon as they came to the hospital. They actually beat me to the hospital.
Yeah.
And then, just.
Did they fly you to Germany initially like they do, and then they transport you, what, Balboa was? Is that where you went?
I went from Balad Surgical to Landstuhl, Germany, and then Germany to Bethesda. Because,
Okay, Bethesda.
Balboa wasn't set up yet for casualties.
Right, you're right. Because 2005. So
yeah, 2005, 2006.
I'm going off. Yeah, they're still developing all that.
Yeah,
just want to make sure I hit everything. How many surgeries total have you had?
I've had 92 stateside, and I at least have 2 more on the books right now. So.
Oh, really? So still doing it?
Yeah, one of them is. Luckily, I'm getting a spinal cord stimulator taken out, so I'm finally like at the process of my recovery where I don't need it anymore, and so it actually hinders my healthcare instead of betters it. So.
Just mentioning something like that. I mean, I'm a nurse, so I kind of track a little bit more, but just like So you didn't think about that spinal cord stimulator, like just,
Yeah.
it's kind of incredible
Yeah. And it helped.
how the nuances of your care.
It helped me out quite a bit 'cause I had it in when I still had my right leg, and then I needed it for the phantom limb pain too. Fracture to my lower back, and then the pain of the legs and stuff, and then the phantom pain.
Yeah.
But now I had a new procedure done called RPNI, where they basically take your nerve endings in your amputation and then wrap them with healthy muscle instead of just leaving them, free floating.
Oh, wow.
And so that way they don't grow neuromas. But on my left side, I didn't have neuromas in the distal end at the very end where the nub is. I had neuromas growing on my sciatic and perineal nerves,
Oh, man.
so on the back of my leg, so when they removed them, but now I don't have phantom limb pain that often, maybe 5.
I was about to ask you about the phantom limb pain.
Yeah. And so, but now with the MR or the spinal cord stimulator, I can't get MRIs. And so, yeah, so it's like I might as well just take it out and move on.
I wanted to ask you, what books have you written? You wrote a book. Want to tell me about that?
So I've written 2. I don't have copies of them right here.
And we'll have links in the description for those watching and listening. We're going to have quite a few. I'm going to be asking you after this. Send me all the organizations you're a part of.
Yeah.
And all that. And for the podcast and the clips, I'll put it all over there so people can reach out.
Yeah. So for the books I wrote, my first book, which is called There and Back Again, Stories from a Combat Navy Corpsman, which I didn't pick the title. I kind of did because I'm a little bit of a...
Well, it tells you it's a good title.
Yeah,
It's a good title.
yeah. My publisher
tells you what you need to know.
My publisher, Kohler Books, they're really good. But yeah, that's basically autobiography after I got hit until my Bronze Star, which was backdated. And then, which I'm going to do a second version just because I'm doing so much, and, like a second edition essentially. And then I wrote a fictional piece called A Coven. And it's about karma, purgatory, witchcraft, which just something I just dreamt up one day, like literally dreamt it up, and so put it together. And now I'm writing books 2 and 3 of that series. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, I love it, man. Writing it's very, very awesome.
I know you have to go. I don't want to.
Oh, no,
I don't want to keep you too much.
You're good, bro.
I do want to comment on the writing thing though, because I joined at 28, and before that, I had left college. 9/11 partly inspired that. Almost dying in a car accident was the other half of that coin.
Yeah.
I was always passionate about writing, and I did an apprenticeship in New York for 6 years, almost every weekend. It was classic literature, and I was into filmmaking, and even now, I wrote short stories, but I just finished a 214-page graphic novel. I used AI to illustrate, and it's all original writing, and I'm getting it proofread now, and I copywrote it, and all this stuff. I wanted to ask you, do you find it more liberating to write fiction, to utilize your life experience in fiction than nonfiction? Because I find that almost like fiction is more real than real life. You can use metaphor and design characters, and one of the great classic writers, George Eliot, she's a Victorian writer. She would write everything 10 or 15 years in the past because she knew the events and the news, and she would utilize the world of those characters as a sort of to send a message, rather than just writing in modern times. Do you find anything like that with fiction?
Oh, I love writing fiction, man, because for me, it's like an escape, right? So you escape reality and then create your own reality, right? Like it's so fun, and like you said, you can use
because you're world building as well.
Oh yeah, and for me, it's like when I first sat down and started writing my Coven. So I had just signed. Coven wasn't even, or my autobiography wasn't even published yet. Like I think it was like the month before with the publisher, and the publisher told me,
Congratulations, by the way. But to even talk to a publisher, that's the daunting task that I always had to go through, was to had an agent, a literary agent back in the day, but like just to get that, and then to try to get to a publisher or whoever, like just.
It's great. And my publisher, he's a military brat. So he, very supportive of veterans. And so
Yeah,
he definitely wanted to share my story. I sent the script and he was like, yes, absolutely. But
that's amazing. That must have been such a good day when you got that. It's just
oh yeah.
to get that kind of validation for a creative effort is just unparalleled.
Oh yeah. And so we sat down and we had our virtual, onboarding, and he was like, okay, now I want you to go create a website in a section called books. And I was like, nah, dude, I'm done. I wrote one book, 360 something pages. And he said, no, I have a feeling you're not done yet. And I was like, okay, whatever. Like, I didn't want to get into it with him. And I didn't want to also be closed-minded. So then I go and I do a week-long training camp, baseball team. So I'm in there. I have this roommate. He snores so loud. So I had to put on my headphones. Just white noise was the only thing I could drown him out, like full volume, just to get some sleep.
Yeah.
And I had some weird, wild dreams. And so I just got up. I texted myself those, went back to sleep, went back into the dreams. And so I was like, what the hell? So I got up again, texted myself the rest of the dreams. And then I was like, okay, whatever. So I just started putting it into, like, I came back. I went and did Kilimanjaro, came back. And then
There's another nugget I didn't mention, the Kilimanjaro.
Well, that was my second trip.
You're trying to climb Mount. You climbed it, right? Or
yeah. And so I was team captain.
I can't complain about anything ever again.
And we had just did, like, it was like right as COVID was starting, and Tanzania was shutting off travel from anyone coming from Asia. They were just like, no. So the team, we flew through Amsterdam, and then Amsterdam, we all went like back to our individual like areas in the States. And literally the next day, international travel was shut down. And so,
wow.
So then all the curfews and everything. And so I was like, well, I'll start writing. So I just sit down and I just start typing out these dreams, right? Like 35 pages.
Yeah, that's a good
later.
time to do it.
Oh yeah.
35.
And I was just like, dude, I had to like go backfill an outline because I had no idea where I was leaving off with things. And so this is incredible. And my mindset before that was, I'll just put this into like a short story, maybe just do like a dream short story here, dream short story. But then it just turned into this book. And then now I'm turning it into a series, and it's incredible.
That's great, man. Every story has its own cadence. Like a short story is different than a novel.
Oh yeah.
Sometimes it doesn't work for a novel. Like even, podcasting, it's a long form medium. It doesn't, I'm not really into doing the short, trendy 30-second bits. I like the long form. So you got to like find your balance with that. Oh, but that's incredible. Once in a while, I get the bug for the narrative writing, and I'll do like it's called Gotham City Workshop, I think it is. If I can remember, it's like New York based. You're with a team, and you just have deadlines to write shorts and assignments like that. And it's fun for me. But the graphic novel was because I spent so many years as a striving artist, independent filmmaker, and once I saw that with AI, I could like pretty much do advanced storyboarding. And I was a comic geek. I get it, and I understand the whole medium. But it was almost like the 214-page graphic novel I just did was basically the movie I could never make.
Yeah.
It had all the angles and all the storylines, and I'm really proud of it. But
you never know. Like it could be one day.
You never know, right? We'll see what happens with it. But and now I would imagine you've got bit by the bug. There's a book that Hemingway was a part of called A Movable Feast, and he has this famous essay where he talks about like his ideas come when he's not writing at all, and that's what it is for me. Like even if I thought I could not write, I might be driving the car or working out, and I'm like, it just comes. It's like it has to come out. It'll just torture me to death.
Oh yeah. Well, and like I basically text myself these ideas, and then I go through and I'm like, okay, where can I fit this into this book? McCoven 2 and 3, separate plots and separate main characters. So and I'm also writing McCoven 2 and 3 with my daughter. So her.
How old is she?
She'll be 12 in August. And so
Yeah, that's great. You got to get him. You got to get him bit by the bug, the writing bug, the reading bug.
Yeah.
I can't wait to set up my office in my house one day. I have like 7 crates of books from those years of apprenticeship. Riverside edition of Shakespeare, everything he ever wrote, and some of the classics. Dostoevsky and African American writers like James Baldwin wrote The Invisible Man. What the heck was his name? Ralph Ellison.
Yeah.
And, just which The Invisible Man, like when you read that book, you want to talk about like writing metaphors. He was an ace with that. But yeah, I just wanna like when you start reading, you realize that any questions you have already been tackled, whether it's like 1,000 years ago or longer, or in the 20th century or 21st century. Like there's an answer to every question. You just have to find it.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And like you said, you kind of get to make up your own world, but also like throw in, real life stuff too. And,
Yeah.
in McCoven, all the characters, well, not all, but I want to say about 90% of the characters are based off of people I know. And,
Yeah.
like,
Little twists though, like little
oh,
spin.
like one of the main characters, Michelle in the book, that's my daughter, and so,
Okay.
and like her personality as like an older version of her, like tackling real world
Yeah.
problems, and so, it's fun, man. And then now that my son's like old enough where I have like a gauge on his personality, he's going to be the main character in part 3, and
That's amazing.
so I just love it, man. Writing's fun, and I just throw on the headphones, listen to music when the world goes to sleep,
Yeah.
and yeah. So,
Yeah, I wrote essentially a film noir. It's cynical and it's nasty, and but it doesn't say that's what the world is. It just says that's what the world is for them based on their
oh,
decisions. Because I like to have positivity, and I think that writing is two ways. Sometimes it's like, hey, I'm going to take you to a fantasy world that's totally different than your life, or like me, I'm going to write in an entertaining way a world that is so bad you can only feel good about your life because at least no matter what you're going through, you going through what they're going through. That to me is the fun. That's what I love about film noir. Which film noir is actually was real quick. I don't want to keep you. Film noir. What was special about that was World War II veterans coming back to 1950s America and being like, "Yo, the world is a darker place than this," and
oh
that's
wow,
what film noir came from. It came
wow.
from those World War II veterans being like, there's dark places in this world and we're not talking about it, and that's what got me into film noir.
Well, I just want to say
But is it yeah.
like a special shout out because I am an ambassador with Gary City Foundation. I do. I take very much pride in working as an ambassador for Gary and his mission. For those that don't know, Gary is Lieutenant Dan from Forrest Gump.
I always wanted to meet him. I always wanted to.
He's such a great guy, and and he first of all, when I got called and was accepted into the RISE program, which is Special Adaptive Smart Homes, essentially, I was emotional beyond means. But then, then I became an ambassador, and when Gary personally calls, he personally called me and asked me if I'd be an ambassador, and I was like, absolutely. I take so much pride in that and what his mission and what he's doing, and there's so much more. Everything from taking gold star kids, for those that don't know, that's kids of fallen heroes, nation's heroes, not just military, but he incorporated first responder families of the fallen first responders as well, and takes them to Disney World, year-long, follow-ups, retreats, everything to special adaptive smart houses for first responders and veterans. And I'm part of the educational program, which is so incredible. It's going and talking to high school kids, like just so many other programs out there. So, deep.
There's celebrities that get involved, and that's good on them. But Gary Sinise, it seems like, I mean, I get the impression even his acting career could have been more.
Oh yeah.
He takes what he does and he really commits to these projects, and he follows up, and he's just not there as using his celebrity. Like he is
Oh yeah.
in it.
Oh, well, and even before starting the foundation, he had the Lieutenant Dan band. And before he could get the Lieutenant Dan band as part of like doing USO tours in combat zones, not just like, Kuwait City or wherever, he was
Right.
like deep into like Afghanistan and Iraq, and like building morale for the troops. Like, he was just there shaking hands,
I love
hugging.
to talk to him. I love to ask him, like, what inspired you to get this involved? 'Cause it's
Yeah.
almost like it's like the way somebody would get involved, like if it was their child, but
Oh, yeah.
multiplied exponentially.
Well, I know Gary's like family. He had family that were in Vietnam and whatnot, and
Hmm.
just incredible. And if anyone wants to read his book and find out more, him and actor John Malkovich started the Steppenwolf Theater outside Chicago, and they would do special days where veterans could come and see shows for free. And
That's cool.
and so even before he was like, Lieutenant Dan, he was doing all this.
Yeah, it was part of his family culture. It seems.
Oh yeah, and he great guy. And then another thing I love is doing Paralympic bobsledding. Man, it's so fun.
Yeah. I always think of like Jamaican bobsledding, like the image of it, like,
Dude, that's even.
no, I know. Seeing you on that's got to be funny. I mean, I don't mean it like that. I
Oh
mean,
no, no.
it's just, you're a corpsman, you play baseball, you do marathons, and then like the bobsledding thing, it just caught me off guard. I
Oh,
was
dude,
like,
it's
like that actually sounds really fun
oh,
and kind of dangerous, but like in a fun way.
I,
Like handle that.
the
I'm not going to bungee jump. I'm 245 pounds, but bobsledding, we can try that.
dude, bobsledding is I love it, man. It's fun. I just completed my first like full year with the program, and so I made the alternate for this next season, which starts in November with the World Cup trials, and I'm gunning for a spot on the World Cup team.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh
man.
man, I'm rooting for you, my friend.
I'm excited. I love it, man. It's good.
That's going to be a trip to be an athlete. I still consider myself an athlete. I was, all state in football and county champ in wrestling. And I've always maintained like, I mean, after kids working out changes, I used to judge my workouts, good workouts and bad workouts. And now a good workout is just being able to work out.
Oh
But
yeah.
to be an athlete and then have to adapt to what you've gone through. Now you're an athlete, with you had the one leg and now both legs and having to adapt as an athlete to that new situation. That must have taken time.
Oh yeah, and every sport's different too. So baseball training is different because it's short burst energy. And then having to work on some first base with a lot of like squatting, and so doing that, the squatting, pivoting, and pushing off, like holding the guy on, the
Right.
runner on, but then also like getting in the cages and figuring out the mechanics because I'm left-handed hitter with the left leg amputation. Like, where does my left leg, because rotating it in the
Right.
cleat isn't, so I had to like,
And your fingers.
and then now doing bobsledding, which, is a whole different sport. And then also trying to train when you're not in a bobsled is one of the toughest things.
Mhm.
Off season is like April to November. It's a long time to not be in a bobsled and then just show up and do World Cup trials.
And you're 39 years old. I'm 44. You're 39.
Yeah.
There's that too. I want to get back into wrestling. My buddy has his daughter jiu-jitsu wrestling. I'm thinking about doing that with mine because I feel like I on my last hurrah, I want to compete again
Yeah.
and do that.
Yeah.
My last hurrah. Listen, I'm going to let you go. I know you have somewhere to be. Doc Jacobs, it's been an honor. I felt a little awkward asking you because we only spoke briefly years ago, but you were very gracious to do this. I really appreciate it and talking about your experiences like this.
I appreciate it. And thank you for having me on. And if anyone ever needs any inspiration or just someone to talk to who's going through it, please do reach out.
What is that website of yours?
Well, right now I don't have, kind of working on it, updating.
Okay.
But they can find me on Instagram or Facebook.
Okay. We'll have links to that.
Another thing that I do just real quick is I'm a certified peer visitor, hospitals, including VA. Certified peer visitor through the Amputee Coalition of America. And so it is important to talk about like what's going on, how you're doing, how you're feeling, because bottling all that
When
up.
you say certified,
Yeah.
I'm sorry to cut you off.
Well, no, I was just saying that, when you bottle all that up and try to tough it out, that doesn't do anybody any good. Yeah.
When you say certified peer visitor, there's a certification that you have to get, like to be able to qualify to talk to people.
Yeah. You have to go in and go through this I can't remember how long of the training program. I'm sure it varies, but you go in and you go through class and then simulated stories or simulated scenarios, and you basically have to learn how to, I don't want to say deal, but learn how to talk with and approach someone in their darkest times, whether they just had their leg.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I was thinking along the lines, you're receiving, you don't know what from someone, and you have to like not flinch and be able to receive it
Yeah.
and
And go in and,
respond to that. Yeah.
you have emotional family members and loved ones, and it's,
Right.
I mean, as you know, in the ER, right? But
Right. As a nurse, which is kind of what you're doing. You're kind of almost like the counselor or the mental health nurse or
yeah,
psych nurse or whatever it is that you have to be. And I'm sure being a corpsman, that gives you a lot of a big advantage.
yeah. But the other thing is we're not allowed to give medical advice, and so
Oh, yeah,
yeah,
yeah, right,
because
right.
it's more
Yeah. That's
just
another thing too. The legal. We need to certify you to.
yes.
We don't want to get sued.
It's one of those like, okay, well, you can go in and talk to these people, but you can't like give medical advice. So it's more of just like listening
Right.
and just
Yeah.
like, okay,
And everyone has their own journey, so that's pretty. That's understandable.
oh yeah, but if like a veteran or like a military person reaches out and is like, hey, I got this going on, and I'm not wearing the certified peer visitor hat, like it's a whole different realm.
Yeah.
Because then I'm like, hey, let's sit down and talk, But in those senses, when you go into a hospital room or meet, like my last, just meet having coffee as this person's preparing and saying, hey, in 2 days I'm losing my leg, like, and they
Yeah.
see someone who is a double amputee walking up, who is a Paralympic athlete, who has done, XYZ. It is inspiring. And I say that because my mentors,
It could save lives. That could save a life,
oh
whether
yeah,
it's a living death or an actual death, and the people around them.
oh yeah, because my mentors, two of them, one, he was a casualty. He got hit early on in 2001 and in the war on terror. And he went and did 3 deployments after combat deployments. And then my other mentor, he was a motorcycle accident, but he was setting world record at the Paralympic Games for sprints, and just
Yeah.
inspiring people, and just knowing that, like seeing that, and like that mentality, like we were talking earlier, like how before I even came back, my guys were already in prosthetics. So seeing that, like,
Yeah.
I could do that, like that makes a huge difference.
I'm glad you brought that up because I asked about your emotional anchor. I should have asked about your mentorship. I always go on and on about the power of the coach, just, you're a father who's not your father, like just that outside experience.
Yeah.
It's amazing how much you can model yourself after someone like that,
Oh yeah.
which is important that people make themselves available. And I'll let you go just because one thing I was doing a clinical at a substance, people who had drug addictions, and they said, you don't keep anything that you don't give away, which I think is such a great quote. You don't keep anything you don't give away. It's like you have the knowledge, the experience, give it to people.
Oh yeah.
And learn from them as you're giving it away, and receive from them, in that exchange. And it's like, I'll never forget that. It just makes you like, what can I do to make other people's lives better from what I have gone through? And then also be prepared to receive magic in return, because people communicate with you and you will also learn from them. But
Yeah.
Doc Jacobs, thank you. Thank you so much for doing this. Let's stay in contact. I'm going to get your book, man.
Oh.
You got a fan.
Oh, thanks.
I need something to read. I got a book from Sal Bello from the 50s. I love classic lit, but I'm just not feeling it right now. I got to put that Sal Bello book on aside, and I think pick up something from Doc Jacobs. I want to read something different.
My dog Reggie says,
Oh yeah. What's going on, Reggie?
he jumped up on.
He looks like he's seen some miles, that guy.
Oh yeah, almost 5 now. He's
All right.
Well,
Yeah, but the coolest background I ever saw on my podcast. Thank you for that.
Well, thanks for having me, and yeah, hopefully, my message reaches someone.
Yeah, good luck to you. I know you're going to do great. I look forward to hearing about how bobsledding is doing, and all your endeavors. We'll keep in touch, all right?
All right, will do, brother. Yeah.
Thank you.
All right.